Friday Night Fights debut, big Kevin Johnson tries to stay unbeaten. He faces veteran Robert Hawkins. Philadelphia's Robert Hawkins, 36 years old, started his career in '94, saved some ring wear and tear by night fighting from '98 to 2004. Came in at 260.25 pounds. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He topped Robert Wiggins, then he went the distance with top 10 heavyweight Sam Peter. The fight against Peter, that was in December at the Hard Rock, and he was able to survive the slugger.
Excellent professional record.
And here is Kevin Johnson, 26-year-old from New Jersey. Some boxing experts say he is the best jab among the heavyweights right now. He's 8-0-1. Draw came against the fellow unbeaten heavyweight prospect. Just his 4th pro fight, he faced Timur Abragimov. There's his last 5, and it shows you he also beat Robert Wiggins. Out of all the hundreds and hundreds of pre-fight interviews that we've conducted, Kevin Johnson is perhaps the most confidently outspoken fighter we've ever had. Here's what he thinks he does well.
Personality, good agility, good speed, good personality, ladies man, people's person. Supposed to be a champ in a little while, but it's going to happen. And a wonderful fighter. I do have the best jab out there now. There's no one out there that can ever compete with me in the jab right now. There's some guys that have been out there 10, 15, 20 years, maybe longer than me. When I think about the heavyweight division today, I think about Larry Holmes and his 7-year run. He did it for 7, I'm going to do it for 8. Ali came, he went. Larry came, Larry went. Mike came, Mike went. It's my turn.
Confident indeed. Scheduled 8-rounder. Dick Flaherty, the referee.
8 rounds. We're going to go by the ABC rules. We went over in the dressing room. There's no questions at this time. When we touch them up, have a good professional fight. A little bit high.
Ring experience, Johnson only 9 fights, but better opposition than you would think. Hawkins has been around the block, so to say. Teddy?
Yeah, this is his best test for Johnson. Hawkins has been in with the much better opposition. I actually looked at this on paper and said, this is an interesting fight. A good test for the younger Johnson at 26 years of age. But then I saw the weight that Hawkins came in, and that was disappointing. To see him come in at the heaviest of his career, 16.25 pounds more Hawkins was than he was in his last fight. So that confused me a little bit, why Hawkins would come in so heavy for such an important fight, and a fight where I think he has a good chance of testing the undefeated Johnson. Maybe one of the reasons for it. I know Hawkins has a lot of things on his mind, Joe. His wife has gone through surgery. Perhaps that has been something that has distracted him from his training.
Hawkins, 260.25 pounds. He's in the blue with the white trim, and there you see that very fast jab from Kevin Johnson. When he fought Sam Peter back on December 15th, he weighed 244.
As I said, expecting Hawkins to give a test to Johnson. Hawkins has beaten 4 undefeated fighters in his career. But Hawkins also has been dropped twice in fights with body shots. And there's a lot of soft body being carried by Hawkins tonight.
Sam Peter was able to get to that body in the first round of that fight back in December. He dropped Robert Hawkins, but Hawkins was able to survive. Lost a 10-round decision to the big slugger Sam Peter.
This is a step up, as I said, for Johnson, but I give him credit and his people credit. He has fought 2 opponents that most prospects would not fight in their first 6 fights.
Well, how about Timur Abragimov in his 4th fight as a pro? Abragimov at the time was 13-0. You saw him in the Olympics, the Russian amateur star. I mean, that was a real step up in only his 4th fight.
Yeah, an experienced guy with that pedigree of the amateurs, as you just touched on, and also a very strong physical fighter. Johnson's people have put him in pretty tough for a kid at this point in his career who didn't have a lot of amateur fights, only 15. A lot of confidence behind Johnson.
Well, he doesn't lack confidence. You heard that in our pre-fight interviews with Kevin Johnson, the 26-year-old self-hyped heavyweight prospect, trying to get everybody else behind his efforts.
And right now, Johnson trying to pick spots, using his legs a little bit, trying to do a little Jersey Joe Walcott, turning his shoulder, taking a little walk, trying to show a little showmanship and a little technique to keep Hawkins off balance, not set to punch, reaching a little bit like he just did. hands down in a careless manner for Johnson, but he's out of range. When he presses forward, you would expect him to have those hands up. Right now, outside, no danger, using his legs to try to keep Hawkins off balance and trying to pick spots and trying to grab the round.
End of round one. How about a closer look at the 36-year-old Robert Hawkins, the grandfather Robert Hawkins. He proudly boasted to us about his 18-year-old daughter's beautiful baby girl. Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas with you from Mohegan Sun here on Friday Night Fights, presented by Just for Men Hair Color. With all due respect to Papa Hawkins, to me, this is about what are we getting with Kevin Johnson. What do you look for in a young heavyweight prospect at this stage of the game, Teddy?
Well, you want to see how mentally he's together when he's challenged. You want to see when he's asked to take a deep breath during a fight, when he's asked to answer a question during a fight, how poised he is, how much he keeps himself together. Of course, you want to see his technique, you want to see his style, you want to see his physical ability, but most important of all, you want to see how he conducts himself when he's forced to make tough decisions that first time during a fight. And maybe tonight could be that first time.
Kevin Johnson readying himself for round number 2. Told us yesterday, he said, I'll be fighting for a title by my 17th pro fight. He's now 8-0-1. His national TV debut. A little bit of a step up against Hawkins, but he feels that his skill and especially that jab will lead the way to that being a reality of getting a title shot sooner rather than later.
You talked about the inactivity in Hawkins' career, had that gap, you said, of 6 years and 3 months from 1998 to 2004. Johnson had a small gap. Before his last fight, he was off 1 year.
Taking his time, being cautious.
Staying outside, trying to take advantage of Hawkins' mistakes.
There's that jab, doubles it up, goes back to it.
And again, the hands down of Johnson, but from a far range, out of distance. You notice that Johnson does get his hands up if he gets close or Hawkins gets close to him, as you can see right there.
Covers up as Hawkins tries to drive him into the corner. Back out at range for Kevin Johnson. Snaps that jab and puts a right hand to the body behind it.
Johnson showing all his confidence on the outside right now. Johnson not doing a lot to create his own offense. Looking like his mindset and his style is to take advantage of Hawkins making mistake. Right now, Hawkins not making any mistakes, being tentative, laying in front, not taking many chances.
Boy, for a guy who's only fighting in his 10th pro fight, Kevin Johnson, we talked about the fact he doesn't have a lot of amateur experience, and this is his TV debut, and as much as he talks, there's a certain calmness in there for only being in the 2nd round. Almost too calm to a certain extent.
Well, you want to see a calmness, you want to see a togetherness. You want somebody in that squared circle to be able to think properly.
Well, he has that so far.
And the temperament, the mental part of a fighter, that's what makes them a prospect. How they conduct themselves mentally, even if they didn't have a lot of amateur fights, what they've been through in life, what kind of disciplines they've dealt with in life, what kind of difficult situations they've dealt with in life. If they have, sometimes that allows them to have the temperament to move forward in the boxing industry, to be calm, as you're saying, to be together, to handle extreme conditions. And believe me, being in that ring, those are extreme conditions.
Yeah, regardless of what's opposite you, try it once, you'll find out.
Again, Johnson keeps his hands down, using that jab. The only thing he's leading with, creating offense with, is the jab. He's looking for counters otherwise.
Robert Hawkins, Kevin Johnson at the end of round number 2.
Nobody knows.
26-year-old Kevin Johnson in the all-blue trunks coming out for round number 3 against the experienced Philadelphia heavyweight Robert Hawkins, who's been coming forward for the past few rounds as Johnson calmly sits back and snaps out that very, very fast jab. And here's Hawkins charging forward again, trying to go to the body.
Hawkins, the shorter man.
All right, let him go.
You would expect him to want to be inside, especially after what you've seen the first 2 rounds displayed by Johnson. A long jab and an attitude to want to stay outside, not want to do anything inside. The problem with Hawkins is when he gets inside, he does not keep up the punch rate, and a lot of that can obviously be attached to the condition he has come in tonight. As I said, 16¼ pounds more than his last fight.
260¼ was 244 against St. Peter. Now look at the work with the jab.
Simply put, if Hawkins stays outside, he will not win this fight.
No way, not with what we're seeing here in this 3rd round, as such consistent work snapping out that left hand of Kevin Johnson.
And also, simply put, if Hawkins gets inside and does not move his hands in a consistent manner, he still will not win the fight. He has to do something when he gets inside.
Now, there
not
he
just
gets
get
to
in.
the inside. Let's see if he can work. Instead, ties up. The punch trap jab numbers so far. You can see Johnson has already thrown out 19, landing 42%. Real strong clip there for Kevin Johnson.
Again, Hawkins did get what he wanted in close, but did not do what he needs to do. Did not work. You wonder if he was in better shape, would he have made a better choice? Two opportunities here for Hawkins. One is to get inside and work, and the other is to catch Johnson as he steps out. Johnson will step out, as we've seen, with his hands down. You need to time him like that. Punch behind him. Force him out of the pocket and try to have your punch where he's going to be.
So much work snapping that jab to the head from Johnson. He's 0 for on body punches. Up on his toes, dancing around, comfort zone on the outside. He's got that big rangefinder, that walking stick in the form of the left hand. Here comes Hawkins coming in again.
When somebody's trying to dominate you with their jab and their confidence comes from the jab, as Johnson's does, you need to find a way to neutralize that jab. And there's 2 basic ways. One is to use your own, which Hawkins is not doing, and the other is to throw right hands over the jab. Again, Hawkins not doing. Hawkins showing that experience and cuteness and ability to survive, but not the condition to try to win. Not so far.
See if Hawkins can come up with something different. Kevin Johnson, round number 4 on Friday Night Fights, presented by Just for Men Hair Color. Teddy Atlas's scorecard after 3 rounds. 30-27. Kevin Johnson with that consistent jab, putting rounds right into the bank. Johnson, 26 years old, 8-0-1. He's fought 2 decent opponents early on. Wiggins and Abragimov. Had a draw with Timur Abragimov and had the win over Robert Wiggins, a journeyman gatekeeper of this division. And speaking of undefeated heavyweights, there was a time when Teddy Atlas was with an undefeated heavyweight named Shannon Briggs. And Shannon is with us in studio with Brian Kenny tonight. Shannon, so glad you're with us. Let me ask you this. What do you make of Kevin Johnson?
I'm impressed. I mean, I'm impressed with his hand speed. He's a little amateurish in the way he pulls back sometimes, but I think he thinks he's a little bit of like a mixture between Ali and Roy Jones, but he has fast hands, very fast hands.
Shannon, who's bigger, you or Hawkins? Who's heavier?
Oh, that's funny.
You knew he was going to kill you, Shannon. I mean, you just knew it was coming from a mile away, didn't you?
I know, man. I was like, I hope I don't. I'm gonna actually come over to Mohegan after I finish to see you guys, and hopefully I won't see Teddy.
I hope I get to see you, Shannon. It's always nice to see you.
Always, you're my man for life.
Shannon, if you were in the corner of Kevin Johnson, I know you've only seen 3 rounds, but give me an example of things you would be wanting to work on with him in the gym at this stage of his career.
Well, to be honest with you, Joe, I mean, possibly coming back with a left hook after that right hand. He throws a nice one too, but he's only throwing like 1 or 2 punches at a time. There's a lead left hook, and then he steps back. He's not putting his punches together. So I'd like to tell him to, basically put his punches together and work on combinations and to set things up. Teddy taught me as a young kid, to basically, we call it set the table up. You know what I mean? Dress him up before you take him out. He's dressing him up with the jab, but he's not taking him out.
You want to see him have a big arsenal, be more creative with his punches.
Exactly, exactly. You know,
in other words, right now, he's acting like a guy that's just got a six-shooter. You want to see him have maybe a machine pistol.
Exactly.
A guy that does more with his hands.
Exactly. There he is again with just the jab or the 1-2. I like to see him set up things, maybe hook off the jab, come back with a right hand. You know, and even try to work on the inside sometimes, see what he has on the inside.
I'd like to see him work on the inside a little tonight, especially when there's such a soft inside with Hawkins.
Great job, Shannon. We'll be hearing from you throughout the night. Shannon Briggs, our guest analyst tonight. Of course, we saw Shannon take out Abraham O'Kine last June on Friday Night Fights.
And you see the confidence raising now of Johnson.
Finishing up strong.
From the last round, we talked about Johnson having more of an arsenal. There's the arsenal that has carried him so far in this fight. Mostly the left jab. That's been enough for Johnson.
So how good is it, Teddy? I mean, you know, this thing was really hyped. We heard some boxing experts saying he's got the fastest, most accurate heavyweight jab going back to Larry Holmes. He says he's got a lot of Muhammad Ali in him. How good is it now that you've seen this guy for 4 rounds? The jab itself.
Well, it's hard to say because he's in there so far with a guy who's allowing him to work at his own pace, allowing him to have his own way. So far, he's been in there with a perfect opponent, a guy who's slick enough to survive, slick enough to get away from some punches because of his experience, but so far not committed to putting pressure on to really test the young Johnson.
Punch track jab numbers so far in the fight, and you can see Johnson. When your percentage is 51%, that is great work with the jab. 73 out of 144.
But of course, it's a jab that's not being contested. A jab that's being thrown so far at a little bit of a shadow, at a wall.
Right hand comes behind it that time. Clean sweep so far in Teddy's scorecard.
No jab coming at Johnson. Nothing to discourage him. Nothing to question his confidence in his jab. No right hands coming over the jab. One of the things that I'd be concerned about, just look where the jab is. It's down around the hip of Johnson. You asked me what I thought about him having the fastest jab in the business. One of my concerns when he fights the better, more elite fighters, and Shannon can attest to this, is when he's throwing a jab from the hip right now and he's getting away with it with Hawkins, who is not active, who's not testing him, will he get away with that with the high echelon of fighters? Watch his jab down by the hip. He's got to bring it up a little bit before he throws it. Will he be able to do that and get away with that and be effective with that with the better fighters? I don't know.
What I'd like to know is he doing that because he's in against Hawkins and he can, or does he have a wide array of jabs and can throw it off the shoulder, you know, and he's just going to the hip because he can get away with it right now because the counter right's not coming back at him?
Hopefully for him and for his backers, the answer is he's only doing it because he has Hawkins in front of him. But from my experience, usually what you see in the ring, what you see a guy do, is that guy. You're going to see that for the most part at other times too, because it's a habit. If it wasn't a habit, he wouldn't be doing it that way.
No doubt about it.
Again, watch where that jab is when he's outside of Johnson, down around the hip. Now with
It's right there.
Now with a better fighter, you ask me, is his jab the fastest in the business? Will be able to bring him to a title? Now watch it, when it's down around the hip with a better fighter, will he be able to get it up to his belly button, get it up to his chest area, and still get it off? Or will a better fighter time him before he does that?
The extremely outgoing, overly confident Kevin Johnson coming off the stool for round number 6 against the veteran 36-year-old Robert Hawkins. We were listening in after the 5th round to what Kevin Johnson was talking about in his corner, and he repeated a line that he said to us yesterday. He said, "Kid in a candy store, kid in a candy store." He's talking about how easy he thinks this outing will be for him and how consistent the work will be with the jab. That's exactly what we've seen so far, as you see well ahead on Teddy Atlas's scorecard. Round 6 scheduled for 8.
What I do like so far is the physical ability. Shannon touched on that. He's got good hand speed. He's in good shape. He has good physical presence, good body, Johnson. I like his temperament. He's calm in there. He's confident in there. What I'd like to see him start to do is, as Shannon touched on, start to eat a little bit more after he sets the table with the left hand. Start to be more creative, more productive with his arsenal of punches.
Shannon Briggs in studio tonight with Brian Kenny. He's coming off of his Fourth round knockout over Dickie Ryan back on March 18th, and looking forward to a big money fight among the top heavyweights in the world, something that he will talk to Brian Kenny about when we're back in studio here on Friday Night Fights, presented by Just for Men Hair Color. Of course, still to come in our main event tonight, the former light heavyweight champion of the world, Montel Griffin, will take on the brawling Norman Jones. That's still to come. 12 rounds of light heavyweight action on Friday Night Fights.
As we try to assess the future of Johnson, you know, it's one thing to watch him dominate a fighter who's 260¼ pounds, the heaviest of his career, to dominate him with the left hand. But we know from reality, from practice, from experience, that he can't depend on dominating all fighters in the future with just that left hand. That's where you want to see him develop more in the areas of doing things off of the left jab. Develop a repertoire of punches. Use that jab to set up right hands, to set up left hooks. Even use the jab itself to do more things off of it. Yeah, he has a quick hand, but look to develop where you can hook off the jab, uppercut off the jab. Make that jab be much more effective and much more productive. As I used to say to Shannon, teach that jab to speak different languages.
Right now, the language that the Mohegan Sun fight fans would like him to speak is that of a little more aggression. They were just booing moments ago, but keep in mind, very smart fight fans here, and fight fans that have been spoiled through the years. This is the home of Gaddy Ward 1 and so many great, exciting world championship fights. Here, just consistent workmanlike effort as Kevin Johnson in total control as he fires off 5 more jabs at Robert Hawkins. More to come after this. Fights presented by Just for Men Hair Color. Joe Tessitore, Teddy Atlas with you here. Teddy, this is the 7th round. It's scheduled for 8. We were able to listen in to the corner of Kevin Johnson, the undefeated heavyweight in the all-blue trunks. And Charles Dewdrop Young, his trainer, said to him, hey, this is the last round. This is the last round. Now, I don't know if that was some psychological motivation to try to get him to press the gas pedal a little bit here, but it's not the last round. It's the 7th round, and that can work against you a bit. Yes, it can, because your fighter goes out there mentally and physically thinking that it's the last round, and then obviously comes back and there's one more to go. There can be some discouragement. There can be a drop-off mentally of saying, gee, I didn't plan on that. And mentally they can start to sit in a little bit of doubt. And that's one thing that you never want to start to creep into the mindset of a fighter, especially a fighter undefeated in his biggest fight so far in his career on national television. I don't think he has to worry, because he's got a guy in Hawkins who so far has been pretty cooperative with the kind of pace that he set. But still, you could set up your fighter for a little bit of a letdown when he realizes, yes, I got one more round to go, when he thought it was all over. Hawkins way behind on Teddy Atlas's scorecard, a clean shutout from Kevin Johnson. I'm going to give you a precise example. That is a wonderful point you brought up, Teddy, about that whole last round theory. And it happened in this arena, in this very ring. Mickey Ward, Gaddy won. When Mickey Ward at the end of the 9th round thought that the fight was over, that there wasn't going to be a 10th round, and all that energy just came out of him. He released it, and in the 10th round, Gaddy got after him. That's a very good example. You're right, because it's hard to change what you've already adjusted to emotionally and mentally. You've adjusted to saying that my night's finished after being in such a tough situation, a tough forum, one of the toughest forums there are in anything in this world. And then all of a sudden, you're suddenly told, no, it's not over with. After letting go, after saying, now I can relax. That is a difficult adjustment to make, and something that sometimes can change the pace, the dynamics of a fight. Well, what will be very interesting to watch here, folks, is the way that Kevin Johnson reacts when the bell rings here at the end of the 7th round. Maybe he does indeed know it's the 7th round, and it's his trainer, Dewdrop Young, who's confused. But let's see how he reacts. If he brings those shoulders down and thinks that the fight is over at the end of this round. Of course, one more to go here between Hawkins and Johnson. You know what the fans are seeing here tonight? They're seeing a quick jab, quick hands, physical ability of Johnson, but they're also seeing a temperament that's careful, a temperament that's safety first, a temperament that's thoughtful, a temperament in Johnson that fights a fight to make sure he's as careful as possible. Well, we're here at Mohegan Sun watching a heavyweight prospect in Kevin Johnson. And later on in April on Friday Night Fights, we will see Sam Peter on Friday Night Fights, the much-typed top 10 heavyweight slugger here at Mohegan Sun. Here's what Kevin Johnson thinks about the big slugging Sam Peter.
I will dance around that guy like a husband with his wife on their anniversary with a nice fine glass of champagne at a night out dancing on their 31st anniversary. So that's a young, energetic couple. I would dance around him for 10 rounds, had that boy so dizzy he'll see the clock going backwards. It's a shame. A guy that big with a record that great, yeah. He just went the distance with Robert Hawkins. That's disgusting to me. I'm almost about to throw up in here. Jeez, that's not right.
Well, he can say he's almost going to throw up in here on the thought that Sam Peter went the distance with Robert Hawkins, but let the record show that Sam Peter knocked down Robert Hawkins in the very first round, and then Hawkins fought to survive and lost a 10-round decision to Sam Peter. Most likely, he's about to win an 8-round decision against Robert Hawkins and never, ever had him hurt.
Well, maybe somebody should put an airplane bag in front of Johnson right now, because he may be about to get sick, and he's about to go the distance. Also, as you said, with Hawkins, the same way as Peters did.
Dancing up on his toes, active with the jab. So is Hawkins for a moment there. Let's see if Kevin Johnson can do something different and back up a straight right hand behind that jab. You heard Shannon Briggs, our guest analyst, say not only the right hand, but I'd love to see a left hook in a 3-punch combination. We haven't seen that yet, just more steady work with that piston-like jab from Kevin Johnson.
The best opportunity now for Hawkins to pull this fight out of the fire, and that's what he's going to have to do, at least on my scorecard, to win this fight, is to catch Johnson stepping back. But he has to throw punches to do that, and so far that basic thing has not come to the forefront with Hawkins, just moving his hands, throwing punches. What he would have to do is step behind Johnson, step with Johnson, and place a left hook and a right hand where he's going to be.
Jab has been the big thing of the night. The big numbers according to Punch Track. 130 out of 248. A sensational 52%.
You know, I mentioned the temperament of Johnson, staying outside, being a careful fighter. It's not meant to knock him. It's just meant to say that that is what you get. And that is one of the assets of Johnson. That's what makes Johnson Johnson. That's what will work for Johnson, and that's what will carry him throughout his boxing career as far as he's going to go. Is being consistent with that style and working that style with fighters that are aggressive, fighters that want to get inside, but Johnson will have to be able to be more consistent than them with his style and stay outside, frustrate them, and get his way. Maybe not always the most exciting fights, but for Johnson and his people, all they hope for is it's the most effective style and successful style for their charge. You know, one of the things I'd like to see Johnson do, we talked about, Joe, he's not doing anything off the jab. He's winning the fight with the jab, but he's missing a lot of jabs. Hawkins pretty cute, slipping him. So what I would have liked to see Johnson do, make an adjustment to feint the jab, get a head movement out of Hawkins, and then time him in between one of those moves. Catch his head on the left or the right side.
There's an uppercut there. Finally something other than that piston-like jab.
Just watch the jab of Johnson. We are so mesmerized by the fact that he's dominating with the jab, but we're forgetting he's missing a lot. If he would just feint that left hand, which of course he's not going to get a chance to do now, then he could time Hawkins. He's going to have to try that the next time he's in the ring.
So some mixed reviews for Kevin Johnson, but as expected, goes the distance and clearly won the fight. We will hear the official judges' cards when we come back on Friday Night Fights.
Introducing the brand.
The Just for Men hair color Punch Track fight recap between Hawkins and the unbeaten Johnson. 153 of his 181 connects were jabs for the 26-year-old Kevin Johnson. Teddy Atlas's scorecard. 10 nines across the board, 80-72. Let's send it to the ring to the generous Joe Antonacci.
Boxing fans, after 8 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judge Glenn Feldman scores the bout 79-73. And judges George Smith and Steve Weisfeld both score the bout 80-72 for your winner by unanimous decision from Asbury Park, New Jersey, the Kingpin, Kevin Johnson.
This is a fight crowd, and they're booing Kevin Johnson. They wanted more of a fight, but nonetheless, Kevin Johnson moves to 9-0-1.